in that Senate file, down in a section, it says that it will not be done without the consent of the grazing permittees. So they are in process now of setting up public meetings so that all the stakeholders can be there. There's a lot of land and a big state, and so the advertisement of meetings, I guess, doesn't always get to everybody. And so I believe that this meeting today and this reconsideration will be the calling card for everyone to come to the table and make this good, make this very good. So I would stand for any questions, but I know there's some people here that probably can answer your questions ahead of time. And when you're ready for comments, and we can come back up. Okay.
Okay, while you're here, why don't we ask the committee if they have any questions right from the start? Any questions from the committee to Representative Ottman or Mr. Garland? Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So we're going to start with the agencies, state agencies. Would they come up and give us their thoughts on this?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Welcome.
I'll go ahead. Yeah, Angie Bruce, Director of Game and Fish. Doug Brimmeyer here is Deputy Director with me as well. You heard from me the other day, so I'll keep it very short. But I did want to just retouch base on this federal involvement in state operations. And day to day in my life, I usually always want the state to lead and have always concerns if there's a need for federal involvement, especially in state statute. However, I ask you to look at this a different way, and just want to explain that a little bit. It isn't so much about having federal protections. It is really about having that federal language in place that protects the landowners from the federal government making changes that would have negative effects on their grazing allotments. So it's a protection against a federal action, if that helps clarify it all. And again, we are actively working on seeking this language and seeking it beyond this area, because there's other areas in the state that just deal with bighorn sheep management that we want to make sure that the federal government is recognizing the state plan that is in statute and what we've spent years working on. So with that, I'll just stand for any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Biermeyer, do you have anything?
No, I think Director Bruce covered things pretty well. Thank you.
Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, we appreciate you being here. If you can, want to stick around, you may have more questions. Are there any other state agencies that would like to comment on this bill? Seeing none, we'll open up to the public. Let's see, we have, are there any folks in the room who would like to speak on this bill right now? Mr. Moline, how are you today? Welcome.
Well, Mr. Chairman, so far so good, but it is early. Brett Moline, Wyoming Farm Bureau, sitting in support of this bill. I think the most important thing this bill does is it puts the power, I think it gives the state more power. It gives more power to, by saying that they can't do this, they can't put sheep in there until we get the federal legislation, rather than having this date of January 1st. I think it puts more power to the state and gives more emphasis on the local permittees that are justifiably worried about having a negative impact on their grazing allotments. So, Mr. Chairman, sitting in favor of this bill, I would sit for any questions you or the committee may have for me.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moline. Does the committee have any questions for Mr. Moline? See none.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public would like to speak on this? Welcome, Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Keith Kennedy on behalf of Wyoming Wool Growers, and I believe we also have our Executive Director, Allison Crane, is online to testify this morning as well. And it's your prerogative whether you'd like to admit her now or in a few moments when you're done with testimony from the room. But as we stated before, we are in favor of this for the reasons that you just heard from Mr. Moline. If it makes it more palatable for the committee, we would support the amendment that you have before you, but we would prefer to have the bill as it is now. But if that makes it more palatable for the committee, that amendment would be acceptable. And with that, I'd welcome your questions.
Any questions for Mr. Kennedy? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Magagna.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jim McGagnon with the Wyoming Stockers Association. I testified strongly in favor of this bill. The last time, I won't repeat that testimony. Just one other thing that I would call to the committee's attention. I think this how we deal with this is symbolic in many ways and relates to the broader sense of the relationship between our state wildlife agencies as the managers of our wildlife and the federal land agencies that provide a portion of that habitat. And we've seen over time, but particularly in recent years, more of a shift toward federal agencies exercising jurisdiction that impacts how the state manages their wildlife, in addition to how we manage our livestock. So I think that taking this position here and insisting on federal legislation will have some broader implications for how we deal with the federal agencies on other wildlife-related issues as well. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much. Is there any other public comment out there? Mr. Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to testify in support of the bill. I think it's really important we take out this date that this I think it's arbitrary that this date that was in the original bill. And we say, look, we need to have these protections in place. And I think that makes it clear by deleting that one sentence in the original bill, which is what the bill that's before you today does. So I'm in support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Secretary Gray? I guess not. I think we're good. Thank you. Okay, any more public would like to visit about this? Seeing none, I guess we have the folks on Zoom. Could we bring them forward? Okay, welcome, Ms. Crane. Go ahead with your testimony. We cannot hear you right now.
Sorry about that.
There you go.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm Allison Crane. I'm the Wyoming Wool Growers Executive Director. Sorry I can't be there today. But you've heard from Mr. Garland, you've heard from Mr. Kennedy, and quite a few others over these past two hearings of this House bill. And I am here to ask you to please support this bill. And you will hear from more livestock producers, I believe, today, and landowners in the area that will also be in support of this bill. And this could hugely affect grazing allotments from both cattle and sheep producers in the area and in the vicinity of the Sweetwater Rocks. And this will also help give us ammunition to push for the federal legislation moving forward. And we've put in a lot of work on that federal legislation thus far. So I just ask that you please continue to support this bill. Thank you. And I'll stand for any questions.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Are there any questions for Ms. Crane? Seeing none, we'll go to the next Zoom participant. Who would that be?
Troy Corbett.
Okay, welcome, Troy, and you can unmute your mic and we welcome you here.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, my name's Troy Corbett. Our family ranches there on Sweetwater. And I was given the privilege of participating with the Bighorn Sheep Working Group. And I would like to give credit to that working group and Game and Fish and also legislators that worked on Senate File 118. I believe it was a good bill, but I will also believe that this amendment is necessary to make it a better law. There was a lot of sincere work done on that by folks that really care about Wyoming and wildlife and also the livestock industry. So there's a big agenda behind sheep reintroduction, but it's my feeling that this bill today would be a good chance for us to pause and allow that federal legislation to come forth to really protect us. And I think the political climate would facilitate that better than any other time that we can recall. So I would just ask you to support this bill today. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Do we have any questions from the committee? Seeing none, we'll go to the next Zoom participant.
Katie Chesborough.
Okay. Welcome, Ms. Chesborough.
Hi, good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Katie Chesborough, and I'm the Executive Director of the Wyoming Wild Sheep Foundation. I testified in front of all of you on this bill last Thursday, and I feel like my points were well received, and I'll try not to beleaguer the point here, but I think it's really important to recognize that the bill being amended, the 2024 SF 118, does not approve the reintroduction of bighorn sheep in any way. Again, the original bill was brought through the legislatively approved Wyoming Plan process. It went through 4 years of public meetings with the Domestic Bighorn Sheep Interaction Working Group and was worked on cooperatively with ag and wildlife groups at the table. Now, the Wyoming Wild Sheep Foundation has supported and continues to work on moving federal protections for grazing permittees forward. And we believe that the original SF 118 really brought robust state-based protections for those permittees. It seems that they may not feel that that's the case. One thing I just want to say is that the way this is playing out legislatively really brings into question the validity of the statewide Wyoming Domestic Bighorn Sheep Plan and the purpose of the Interaction Working Group and the process that we've legislatively agreed to follow in the past. So those are my comments. If you have any questions, I'm happy to stand for those.
Okay, well, thank you, ma'am. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, we'll go to the next Zoom participant. Thank you, ma'am.
Chairman, we have one more, but I only have his phone number. I don't know who it is. So
Would be Thad Dockery.
if it's Thad Dockery, it's your turn.
Welcome, Mr. Dockery. Can you unmute your machine there?
Okay,
Are you there now? We can't see you. Mr. Dockery, we're unable to see or hear you. So I don't know what the problem is. Mark, do we have another one on the line?
That would be all for this bill.
Okay. I guess we'll go, if there's no other comments from the audience, why, we'll close public comment. So what is the pleasure of the committee? Do we have a second? Okay, the motion's been made to work the bill. Motion made by Representative Strzok and seconded by Representative Johnson. So is there any? Yes, go ahead, Representative
Mr.
Davis.
Chairman, I would move the amendment that has been brought forth before the committee.
Do we have a second? I'll second. Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we bring the Representative Davis, could you explain that a little bit?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This amendment to me still leaves a good feeling with the bill here. It gives us the ability to continue down this road, and it gives assurances to the landowners that we're in this process by extending it out here. And the amendment, it'll be on page 1, line 1. We will delete removing and insert changing. On page 2, lines 4, we will reinstate if no federal law is enacted that aligns with the purposes of this act is effective January 1st, 2028.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Davis. Do we have any discussion on the amendment? Representative Strzok.
Thank you, Chairman. I think my only comment would be, first of all, this is good for everybody. And if they are not bringing, they've just stated they're not bringing these bighorn sheep, there should be no worry from them either. So it should ease everyone's minds. You know, we shouldn't have any problem with this and just move forward. And I'm an aye on this bill, amendment and on the bill. So thank you.
Representative Davis.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this reinforces the effectiveness of Senate File 118. So I think this is a good motion, and I think we should go with it.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other comments from the committee? Seeing none. Representative
Mr.
Escobar,
Chairman,
sorry.
so I missed the first discussion, but I've been filled in on a lot of it, and I'm supportive of it too. Without the debate, I felt like it needed to happen. I believe these producers are yearning for consistency from the federal government, as is our Game and Fish, and I think this gives the federal government time to react to their needs. And I don't know if I'm in favor of the amendment, which is what we're on. That's what we're planning to vote on. But I like the first part of the amendment. Not sure the second then sticks us into at least it's 2-3 years down the road. By then we should have direction from the federal government. So I think I can support the amendment.
Okay, well, thank you.
Question on the amendment.
Okay, the question's been called for. Okay, all those in favor on the amendment as has been submitted, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you, folks. Mark, do you have any questions about the wording of the amendment?
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you.
And now you need to vote.
Yes. Representative Ottman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, committee. I'd like to thank everybody that is here. While the amendment does make a change, I believe that it makes the bill to cooperate with everybody and that we can go forward because the winds do change. But we can work together on this and then the public will be involved. And I'm hoping it's a win-win for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Ottman. Let's see, we'll go to the next bill. We've got to vote on the bill.
Chairman?
I'm sorry. Could we, does this have to be?
You have to call for the question and then
Okay.
vote.
Question on the bill.
The question's been called for. Would you call for the vote?
We're voting on House Bill 221 with the amendment. Representative Banks.
Aye.
Representative Davis.
Aye.
Representative Eklund.
Aye.
Representative Johnson.
Aye.
Representative Ottman.
Aye.
Representative Provenza.
Aye.
Representative Schmidt.
Aye.
Representative Strzok.
Aye.
Chairman Winter.
Aye.
9-0 is the vote, and that would pass.
Okay. Vote has been 9-0, and that bill is passed. We'll go to House Bill 132. Yes, welcome Representative Smith.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. My first time here presenting before you guys, and so it's an honor to do so. Before you, you have House Bill 132. It's basically a Wyoming solution for a Wyoming problem. And sitting behind me are a couple gentlemen from my community that stopped me at a gas station one day and told me about a problem that they have with their business trying to get permits for transporting sheds. So that's where it all started, and looked for different ways to make things more efficient and easier and economical for this business. And so what you have before you is something that's already in statute that was already carved out for the logging industry and hay headers. And so what we're doing is just inserting building materials and portable buildings. And with the current permitting process, it's a 90-day permit that people can get for wide loads. And I'm just taking it from 90 days to a year, which is an annual permit, and adding that portable building units and building materials. And we're also increasing the width. And the reason we took 168 inches is that is where the cutoff is for needing escorts on a wide load. So this is so it wasn't just an arbitrary metric out there. So it is, otherwise, if you go beyond that, you would need an escort with the flashing lights before and after the vehicle. And then what I did was, because I took the time and times it by 4, also took the monetary value of $50 and times it by 4 as well. And so that is what you have before you. I do know that this would help a lot of different people across the state. And there is a fiscal note of a little bit of revenue loss. And my thoughts on that is speaking with other legislators that may have had wide loads in the past, that they believe we can maybe even capture people who have wide loads and don't necessarily get permitting and risk the load. And so I'm hoping that with the affordability of the permit, that it would allow more people to say, hey, that's affordable and that's cheaper than a ticket if I do get caught not having the permit, that it would incentivize more people to apply for an annual permit. And the way the process works for my constituents currently, they are self-permitting. And so they are issued through the Department of that deals with our transportation, a little packet with serial numbers on their permits. They issue the permit, and every time they issue a permit and every time their load currently changes, so we'll go back to the example of sheds, he may load up like 3 sheds to deliver around the state, and every time his load changes, so he may drop 1 shed, he has to issue another permit to himself. And then when he drops the second shed, he'll have to issue another permit. And so it's like a $25 process each time. And then he has to have it in the mail to YDOT with the permit and the money within 48 hours of issuing his permit. And so the other benefit of issuing annual permits, not only on the trucking industry, but it would also probably save some time and efficiency with the department as well. So not having to enter into the computer all of these permits. I would like to maybe recommend a couple friendly amendments if the committee so chooses. On page 2, line number 18, it says this authorized representative may. If you so choose, a shall might be in place, and that was brought to my attention through the Wyoming Trucking Association. They really like this idea, and that was one of the recommendations they issued to me. And then one second thing that knowing we are moving towards a digital age, for religious beliefs, the people in my community don't use the internet. And so if possibly on 19 where it says issue permits, maybe put some kind of language in commas like in paper form and addition to digital or other form. Just because I know moving towards a digital age, just don't want to step on people's religious beliefs as well. And so not mandating that they use a digital logbook or something like that. So
Representative Smith, do you have a suggestion for that?
I would just put probably on page 19, after issue permits, comma, in paper, and in addition to digital or other form.
Could you say that again, please?
On page 2, line 19, issue permits, comma, in paper, and in addition to digital or other form. So then that would just spell out that they have to do it, issue a paper form as well. So, but I think the businesses would be greatly benefited. It would create efficiency, more time on the road, less time doing permits, is benefit and economic development for our state. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Representative Provenza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Smith, I got a couple questions. Do you know when the original fee structure was implemented? So when the original statute came with that $50? And then I have some more questions.
That I do not.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
so
Representative.
you recommended that we change the may to shall in line 18 on page 2. I guess I'm curious if there are circumstances where permits might be rejected. Maybe we've got someone applying that doesn't have a driver's license, or someone who has done something in violation of the permit process before. Maybe they're exceeding the width. So I'm wondering if there are circumstances that the trucking association thought of where maybe issuing a permit isn't a great idea, so tying the hands and saying shall might be problematic.
That would be a good question.
Representative, please address the chairman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. That would be a great question for the department. So,
Any other questions? Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pretty good bill here, but I have a few questions on maybe a better description on what is a portable building unit? Is that one on a railroad car? Is it on 12 by 12 sills? Is it on, a skid? I mean, we're pretty vague with that description there. And then also building materials, it's very vague. What's building materials? I think we need to be more precise so that the people that enforce this can determine if that is within the means.
Representative Smith.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I will tell you, it was left vague on purpose to try to capture as many different industries as possible. So building material could be anything from trusses. And so one of my constituents actually builds trusses. And so that would be considered a building material. Didn't want to go through and specify a whole bunch of different building materials, but it would be beneficial. And then as far as portable building units go, I do believe it would even help our oil industry, where they truck around the offices and man camps and things like that, which are portable buildings.
Yeah, Representative Davis.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman. So then on your building materials, you're talking about processed building materials, is that correct? Not raw building materials?
Representative Smith.
It does not specify for a reason, so.
Are
Thank
there
you,
any
Mr.
other
Chair.
questions? Representative Davis.
One more, Mr. Chairman. You talked about the net revenue loss. Where were those dollars earmarked to go? If we're reducing those earmarked dollars, where were they? What was their destiny?
Mr. Chairman?
Representative Smith.
Alrighty, thank you. That would be another great question for the agency, but I don't know that it would be a loss, because if, for instance, the current process, people are mailing in hundreds and hundreds of permits annually, you may be able to even eliminate some full-time employees to make it more efficient. And so there could be some savings there as well.
Go ahead.
One more follow-up, Mr. Chairman. When we get to paper, that brings up, we have the Pony Express that delivers mail in our area. Is the agency have to have that permit in hand before the action can occur?
Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Another good question for the agency. So,
Good, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you, Representative Smith.
thank you.
We'll ask the agency to come forward now. Welcome, folks. Could you state your name and who you represent?
Sure. Thank you, Chairman Winter. Taylor Rossetti, the Deputy Director for the Wyoming Department of Transportation. The bill itself is in Title 31, which is why I'm here, but it is in Chapter 18, which is the commercial vehicle section of the statutes. And for that, I've got with me Major Casey Ramsey and Troy McAlpine, who is the supervisor over the permitting area for patrol. These folks are the ones that actually handle and enact most of this legislation. So I will actually just turn it over to those folks here, and then if there's any questions for me, I'm happy to answer those as well, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rossetti. Would you folks go ahead and state your name and who you represent?
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Troy McAlpine. I represent the Wyoming Highway Patrol. Today, we are here to discuss the proposed changes for the House bill. There were a couple of areas that we would like to provide a little bit further education on and historical value. With Statute 3118-804A, this has specifically been historically an agricultural permit. It was intended for baled hay, corn stalk, combine headers, forest products, all raw materials derived from the ground. By adding the portable building units and building materials, we're now going to be encompassing much more than agricultural operations into the intended statute. Additionally, with the change to this on line 7, page 3, you'll see that we have removed the no single component of the load may exceed 102 inches in width. By removing that, this will hinder the ability for the farmers and the carriers to haul baled hay and combine headers specifically. The way that this is written is each component would be a bale of hay side by side on a trailer, not to exceed 102 inches in and of itself, with the combined total of the width not to exceed the 112 inches. By removing that, we would then not be able to stack those hay bales side by side in order to meet the non-divisible definition.
Do you have any suggestions for that particular?
Yes, Chairman. We believe at this point, with the different commodities encompassing into one statute, it would be far better off to create an additional statute specifically for these sheds and for these materials at an annual rate. The 90-day rate also that is encompassed in here also helps the agricultural community because they don't haul and they don't custom harvest all year round. So giving them that 90-day preliminary area for $50 as opposed to the annual, would be standard for them. So in creating an additional statute with a different fee schedule and a different commodity, we could regulate this much easier.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead if you have more.
I believe that's it for now, Chairman. I stand for questions.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have anything to add.
Okay. Does the committee have any questions for the presenters? Representative Davis.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I'm listening to you right, we're trying to mix apples and oranges, and we have a statute here that's for oranges, and we're trying to put apples in there, that we need to differentiate between the two and probably revisit this with a different set of language. Is that what you're suggesting?
Mr. Chairman and Representative Davis, I do believe that is what Ms. McAlpine was saying. I think what you're looking at there on page 2, starting on line 18, that subsection A, I think what we would request is a separate subsection just addressing the type of equipment that Representative Smith is trying to cover here. That would do exactly what you're saying. That would keep apples with apples and oranges with oranges, and it would be clear to everybody what we're trying to do. I also do think that what Ms. McAlpine brought up there on page 3, line 10, again, that if what we want to do for the building materials and sheds is a $200 annual permit, it's a policy decision for you guys to make. We'd figure out how to regulate that. But I think by amending it the way you have here, as Ms. McAlpine mentioned, agriculture is unintentionally, hit with now they're gonna have to pay 200 where they'd only really need a $50 90-day permit. So again, the content of the bill, it would just maybe be easier if we listed it to a separate subsection and then just made it clear that in this one, we're talking agriculture and in this one, we're talking buildings and building materials.
Thank you. Do you have anything yet?
Mr. Chairman, no, I don't.
Okay. Representative Provenza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the bringer of the bill mentioned changing may to shall, and I'm curious what that does. And, if, again, there are circumstances that permits should be rejected, or any other concerns about that may to shall, which is on page 2, line 18.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Provenza, I'll try to take this one. By changing that from may to shall, it does kind of tie our hands. We do occasionally have individuals that aren't playing by the rules, and that would tie our hands to where we can't actually do any enforcement upon them.
Any more questions? Representative Ottman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to clarify in my thinking, so basically the situation or the people group that we're trying to help with this bill would be, it would be more effective to put it into a subsection. So could we get, is that what you're saying? So that the bill could proceed, but we would like to make it specific so that ag is over here, building materials over here, and it's very clear what they're doing. Is that what I'm hearing?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Ottman, that is exactly what we're saying. I think it would just make it very clear for the body and for us as the regulatory, and I think it would actually provide some clarity for both industries as well.
Thank you. Any more questions? Representative Strzok.
Thank you, Chairman. I think the other thing I really wanted to ask on the hay, I'm really wondering why that is an issue, because they were giving us more width, so in more everything. So I'm not understanding that one at all. We have hay, so I'm very confused at why you said that, because you're just, in this bill, you're giving them more width than what, so that didn't make sense to me. Sorry, thank you.
Chairman, Representative, with that, the way that it is we have divisible and non-divisible loads. This is a specialty permit for divisible loads specific to agricultural operations, and that is why the hay is allowed to be stacked side by side. With any other oversized dimension, you have to have one solid piece of equipment or commodity to make up the total width. This permit allows for the multi-piece divisible movement of hay and combine headers and forest products. And that's why they keep it to each individual component being 102, which is 8.6 legal width with the combined total. So it allows for that exception on that. When you remove that, then everything automatically has to become non-divisible.
I do have a follow-up. Thank you, Chairman. The other question I guess I was going to ask, what if you do have, when we work this, is there a possibility so you do have someone that actually hauls hay all year round? Because it isn't always stuck in those 3 months. Is there a way we could open this up that they could go ahead and have this, go ahead and pay for the year permit? I mean, you have people that's all they do is haul for agriculture, and maybe this would make it easier for them. So in some ways, when we work this, I think that maybe this whole thing needs to be reworked, because I do know there would be some people that would just want the 3 months in agriculture, but there is also these that just end up hauling hay quite a bit of the year. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman and Representative Strzok, I do believe in hearing what you're trying to say there, that there's probably some room there on page 3, lines 9 and 10, specific to the agricultural products, if you wanted to stipulate that an extended period or 90-day permit be 50, and then an annual permit fee be 200. The analysis would be the same for both types of business. It would just, again, clarify for these guys what to do and what would happen roadside for the people.
Thank you. Is there any more questions? Representative Provenza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It sounded to me like the intent originally of the bill dealt with the extended period permit. If we removed language of, the changes on like the portable building, and we took out the strike on the no single component, and we just kept it to the purpose, which was to extend the permit period, would that solve then we wouldn't necessarily need to clean up the rest of the bill?
Mr. Rossetti.
Mr. Chairman and Representative Provenza, I do think as I look at the purpose of the bill, I think the catch title is definitely talking about the extension of the permit, but I also believe that what we were trying to address was the specific business use of the portable buildings and the materials. So I think to meet the full intent of the bringers, and I don't want to speak for him, but I do believe you'd need to create that subsection and then deal with the extensions of the permits as well as you guys see fit. I see it as two actions being completed here.
Representative Eklund.
So if we left statute alone concerning the ag part of this thing, your suggestion would be to have these portable buildings in their own statute, and I'm not sure where that is. How hard would it for you to work with the bringer of the bill to try to do what you're saying, which is, it isn't just about annual permits, it's about interfering with statute that's working okay, and that concerns me. How hard do you think it would be, we've got till Wednesday, to maybe rework this, get that statute where it belongs, and then talk about the bill afterwards? Would you be willing, if the sponsor's willing to do that? The committee really shouldn't be doing that. If we change the bill that drastically and actually put this in another part of statute, and all of these laws are different, we have no testimony from the public, and it's kind of a problem to do it that way. If we pass it this way, we run the risk of damaging the ag industry, because it was set up primarily for them. Give me your opinion. How hard do you think it would be to get it into the right place and maybe run this bill still this year? And we got till Wednesday.
Mr. Rossetti.
Mr. Chairman and Representative Eklund, I feel when you ask for my opinion, you're setting me up, sir. Just kidding. Actually, as I've heard the discussion here, and certainly I don't want to be directive to the body, but it does seem like there's a little bit of appetite to maybe look at the permitting structure on the ag side. We heard the idea of potentially doing an annual permit fee there. So I do believe that what we have here, starting on page 2, moving into page 3, which is 3118-804, it seems like there could be a small amendment made there on the agricultural side. Representative Eklund, I do believe that if we wanted to write a separate subsection to address the portable building units and the building materials, we still have, I think, the appropriate area of statute opened here. I think we could write a subsection to 3118-804 to address that specific thing. It does not seem to be a deal breaker for the committee or for the department to try to work that amendment. I don't know that it's terribly substantive either. I think we could probably get there by Wednesday if the bringer of the bill were willing to work through it to at least get some format based on the bones that we have here in the bill. I do believe it's something that could be accomplished if the body wills us to do so.
Yes.
So, yeah, I guess I didn't altogether understand it. So maybe we could accomplish that this morning in this bill, not have to run it through the whole pipe again, because we're running out of time. You think you could direct us to get that done? It has to be in another section, or does this exclude the public? I'm just not sure I understand that.
Mr. Chairman and Representative Eklund, I do think it's a little bit of a lift, but what I'm suggesting is a subsection to 3118-804 that would specifically address the business line that the bringer of the bill was trying to represent, utilizing the bones that are here. So what I'm suggesting is that we would take out most of the edits that are made in page 2, lines 18 through 23, and page 3, lines 1 through 10, and address that separately if there's some need to do that on the agriculture side. If you want to do a permit on that side, I think we'd deal with that. Then what I'm suggesting is underneath there on line 11, there's potential to insert a separate subsection to deal with the materials that we're looking at trying to do here. We'd have to use the bones of what we have, I think, in this bill, if that meets the bringer's intent, and we'd have to work with our permitting folk and our patrol folks just to make sure we're all comfortable, but I do believe that is something that could be accomplished if that's what the committee would like to do.
Thank you. Anything else?
Mr. Chairman, and we would do that in a separate bill and just use this as an outline. We don't need to pass the permit, the annual permit deal. It can go in a bill that would maybe hopefully come later. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman and Representative Eklund, I think that's really a decision for you guys to make. I really do believe that we can probably get both done. I think we can get both done here. We'd probably need some direction on maybe a conceptual amendment for how you guys would like to proceed, work with the bringer of the bill to come to an agreement on what that looks like. I think we can do it all in one bill, sir.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I guess I would ask the bringer if he'd weigh in on this possibility. And
could you come forward, Mr. Smith?
I think he was saying that we have room right here in this section, right here before section 2 to put that subsection. And I think so.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would be more than happy to work with the department to work this bill and just create a separate subsection. And because everything he's referencing is already here on page 1, it wouldn't be a problem to amend this and just basically keep the language that is stricken, and all the underlined words would just go into a separate subsection. Is that correct?
I believe that is what Mr. Chairman, that is what we're talking about.
Okay, thank you. So I need some direction here, I guess. Do we need to,
So, Mr. Chairman, so my recommendation is to work with YDOT, take all of the, retain everything that has a line through it and leave it as is, and take everything that is underlined and essentially move it into a separate subsection. And I think that would accomplish what it would please the committee, I believe, and the agency and myself and my constituents.
okay, Representative Betty?
And you're wanting to do that today as we work the bill, we'll go ahead.
Miss-
He mentioned it's sort of a lift, but we've got quite a bit of time, so I think
Yeah.
maybe the best thing is to get this done now.
Mr. Chairman, I did try to work with the department ahead of time. LSO did draft a horrible bill that I couldn't even understand, and I worked with YDOT and even spoke with Miss McAlpine here. And so I felt like this was a better direction to go, because the initial stuff was under her breath, it was bad. And so So finding this was, I tried to work with agency prior, but I think we have a good starting point to have a better meeting of the minds than prior before.
Okay, Representative Provenza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would ask for some caution on how we talk about our staff. A little bit kinder. The other thing I think that we could do is we could ask LSO for conceptual amendment when we walk through this. Our staff attorneys would then take the directive that we get and they would work potentially with the chairman to do a standing committee amendment so that we aren't going into the next meeting. I'm trying to find, Mr. Chairman, how many bills we have on our docket right now. You would probably know. How backed up are we? Because we next week is our deadline and we're moving at a snail's pace upstairs. So I just want to make sure we're providing bills and getting through. So we had a bill from last meeting come up in this meeting again. So I just, that's my recommendation to the body. Like, let's figure out what that conceptual amendment language needs to be to our LSO staff attorneys and work with that on committee of the whole.
Okay. Thank you. Any other thoughts from the committee? Representative Davis.
Mr. Chairman, does that mean we would table this bill until later reconsideration? Because if we do that, would that move it to the bottom of the list, is my question.
Representative Provenza.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think that that's necessary. We don't have to move the bill today. So if we don't move the bill, we can pick it back up on Thursday. But my recommendation, my personal opinion is not to do that. My personal opinion is that we tell our staff attorneys, if the committee wants to move the bill forward and work the bill, we ask for the conceptual amendment. We move the bill with the conceptual amendment to upstairs, and then the staff attorneys are drafting that. Now, with them not here, that's hard to know if we're giving them too high of a task to get that done for committee of the whole tomorrow. But I think they could, that's in conversation with the chairman, potentially the sponsor of the bill, and the department. That way, we're not bringing this bill back on Thursday and spending another hour. That's my recommendation.
Okay. Thank you, Representative. Anything else? Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm happy to spend the next few minutes after we adjourn here to go straight upstairs and talk with the LSO staff, with the department, and come up with what you guys decide is agreeable.
Thank you. Are we in agreement with that, folks? Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your time. And, Representative Strong.
Sometimes these buttons don't work. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my only comment would be to really protect the agriculture while you're messing with this, please. So, yeah, that would, and take care of our builders here. And so I think that's now your goal. I guess what we're sending you to do. Thank you, Representative Smith.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony, and we'll work on this here. Representative Ottman, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So is the proper procedure to go ahead and move the bill?
We still have public comment.
Oh, public.
Yeah,
Thank
we'll
you.
take comment here. So, okay, thank you, folks. So we'll take, are there any other agencies, or I guess we have more public comment here. Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Keith Kennedy on behalf of the Wyoming wheat growers, and I would echo what Representative Strzok said. I would urge you to keep this in here, and I would look at this, the agriculture portion of this, as a public safety issue. I can load my over-width combine header on a trailer, have an annual permit, but absent the ability for that, which I may likely use 5, 6, 7 months out of the year at this point, just because of the fact that harvest may start in July and I may be on another crop in November. And I'm free to have that mounted on my combine at a width of 35 or 40 foot and go down the road with no permit. For safety, I'll probably have somebody out in front with their flashers and lights on. But the way this is right now, my advantage is to have that travel with an implement of husbandry where I don't need to have an over width permit. So I would say that your final product should reflect some, an annual permit to encourage us just for public safety. And with that, I'd welcome your questions.
Do we have any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Kennedy?
Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jim Willix, I'm wearing two hats here at the moment. I'm a Converse County Commissioner and also a member of the Transportation Commission. And one thing that I'd like to point out, that the commission is directed to implement rules if this rule passes, or if this law passes. It says at the end, the Transportation Commission and the department shall implement the rules to do it. It was brought up earlier, the definitions of building material and portable buildings are purposely vague. Writing rules and then enforcing things that are purposely vague are difficult at best. And the bringer said he did it on purpose, and I don't mean that negatively, but it was purposely vague. But vague makes it very hard for Highway Patrol then to interpret if it's vague, or gives them lots of latitude to interpret which is vague, which is a policy question that I generally don't individually favor. And I want to be, I'm speaking on behalf of myself, not behalf of the Commissioners Association or the Transportation Commission, but as an individual that would be making decisions along those lines. So I think the conversation policy question is should it have better definitions? And I don't have a recommendation to the committee, but I do think having building materials so broad is very interesting and could cause problems. The other thing is you're carving out something for these portable shed buildings, and I recognize and we see them everywhere, but there's a dozen other industries that have components that meet that. I see oil field industry stuff traveling up I-25 and Highway 59 all the time that have to comply with the other parts of the statute. How many carve-outs do we want to create? That's a policy decision for this body to think about, but there are dozens of others examples of components that are wider or longer or narrower that have to go through the hoops at the moment that may be back in front of this body, although I'm not sure it always come to agriculture, but might come to transportation to talk about that policy question. And then the difference between 150 and 168 inches is not insignificant for the safety question. And the prior speaker alluded to 35 feet, a little bit of exaggeration, but you are in statute then making things wider on the road, which has a safety implication that doesn't leave the department that policy question of deciding, is that safe for the traveling public on a blanket permit that this seems to issue. It's taking everything, if I read it right, from 150 to 168 inches in this statute. Now, dividing it between agriculture and this one may solve that, but I don't know if you want 18 more inches as a safety question. So there's a lot of things involved here. This bill may not be ready for prime time yet and may need some interim work, because I do think there is some interesting components you need to think about, but it may be broader than that. And then the one paper versus electronic, that can be dealt with rules in the department. Or we issue electronic permits and there's still paper permits. So I don't think you have to put that in statute. And then I agree that the amendment about may to shall is a strong language. You should always be a may, so that you can deal with individual situations, both positively, there's a unique situation, so we may issue, or may not because of unique situations. So a lot of things, a ton of policy questions for you to think about that may be hard to address in the time frame that Representative Eklund talked about. Can this be buttoned up in such a time? So, Mr. Chairman, I thank you for the time and entertain any questions.
Yes, thank you. Any questions? Representative Ottman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And sir, could you give me your name again?
I'm Jim Willix, Willix.
Okay.
And I sit on the Transportation Commission and I'm a Converse County Commissioner. So I've worn this hat on a couple of, we issue permits in Converse County, so I've been on the issuing side of local permits and then the rulemaking on the transportation side.
What, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
what my question is if we do what was suggested as putting the language back in there and making a subsection to deal with other things that we're looking to cover, like oil field and sheds and things like that, that would put that back to 150 from 168 and do a couple other things. Would that fix your questions?
Mr. Chairman, Representative, I'm not sure because I'm a little confused on how that's all going to break out. I just think there's a serious policy question increasing 18 inches wherever you put it.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Excuse me, sir. I believe that the directive from this committee is going to be to put back everything that's lined out and to create a separate subsection that would identify what we're working at. I believe that's the way it is, so there wouldn't be that change.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Representative, if I understood the intent, it was to, the strikeout and the underline would stay, so portable buildings would be allowed to go up to 168 inches in that separate subsection, is the way I read the intent of the conversation. The ad was portable building units and building materials could go up to 168 inches, whereas combines and the ag one would stay at 150, is what I understood the conversation to be. That 18 inches is not insignificant. Maybe I'm misinterpreting that, but that's a policy question and a safety question for you to don't miss it in the conversation is all I ask.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? Seeing none.
Thank you, Mr.
very
Chairman.
much. Oh, I'll leave it on. Yes, come forward. State your name and who you represent.
Marcus Loniker, and Mr. Chairman, and you committee, and Mr. Scott, and all the agencies represented today, thank you. I'm humbled to be here. We build portable buildings in Torrington, Wyoming. The name of our business there is Pine Ridge Structures. And we moved here from Kentucky, the state of Kentucky, in 2016, and we were in the same business there. We moved here for religious purposes. There's a Mennonite community there in Torrington. And we thank you for the privilege of doing business in Wyoming. I've worked with the port of entry there at Torrington, and they're my friends. Weather conditions on the road, I call them and ask them how things are, if it's safe to travel today. And they've been very nice to work with. And I've asked them a number of times if there's any path forward in buying an annual permit instead of all the paperwork of, I'm self-issued permits right now with the per load. Like was mentioned, every time my load changes, I issue another permit. The way I understand currently, the hay haulers have a 3-month permit, and I would fully recognize that our business is not agriculture. It's in the building materials. Our loads, we have multiple loads per day, and they are divided. Sometimes there's 2 or 3 sheds on a load. We'll drop to customers en route. So it's continually changing. Back to Kentucky, that's what I was used to there. There was an annual permit I could purchase that blanketed all state highways. And there has been a lot of times where it's been frustrating to me, but our desire here is to work with the state laws and to be safe and to work with what's there. And we're wanting to be respectful to the laws of the land and to operate safely. Another clarification on the last comment there about the extra 18 inches. I am self-issued permit, and the way I understand the current laws in wide loads, right now, I issue permits up to 14 feet, which is what those inches are, without an escort. I don't need any escort up to that measurement. After that measurement, then I need escort front and rear, certain distance from my wide load. But that measurement is currently the state, the width that I can issue up until I need a permit, if that makes sense. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, and all of you for hearing this and giving it consideration, and I'm open for questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for, Marcus, would you give me your last name, please?
It's Loniger. It's Lengacher. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more public testimony? Senator Hutchins, do you have anything to give to us? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else in the room? About, are there any Zoom? Okay. Okay, committee, what is your pleasure? Anybody know?
No, I don't know. I want us to be able to fix this and be able to finish and get it on the floor tomorrow so we can move it forward. So whatever those words are, maybe Carly needs to use them, but do we need to move the bill first? Okay, to discuss doing this. I would like to move the bill.
It's been moved and seconded that we move the bill. All in favor, say aye.
No, now we discuss it.
Discussion. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, is there discussion in the committee? Representative Provenza.
Mr. Chairman, I'm now worried because we've moved the bill, there's a motion on the table. I think we now have to work the bill and take a vote on it. And that doesn't give us, I guess we could do the conceptual amendment, hope that we're happy with what we can get done with LSO. But now we have to work the bill and go upstairs with it. So if your intent was to hold off and, so if your intent was to come back Thursday after we've talked with the department, after we've drafted language so that you can see it before it goes upstairs, then I would recommend that you would draw your motion so that we aren't working this bill now and taking it upstairs. Because if, with a motion on the table, we have to take a vote on this bill today.
What's your?
And you made a mess over there. Okay.
Do we have
Can I
any?
withdraw my motion?
You're sure? Is there any direction from Mr. Knotts?
I defer to Lily.
Mr. Chairman, is it the committee's wish to just to not make any motion on the bill, but to ask LSO to do a proposed amendment that would, for the committee to consider at your next meeting, which would create a subsection, a separate subsection that does all, that has all the changes in subsection A, but it would be in a separate subsection that stand on its own. And then one other thing it would do in subsection A is it would also provide for an annual permit for agriculture.
Okay, I think that's what we want to do. So, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so Representative Davis.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question here. If I move the bill and can get a second, can we discuss it and I can just like the previous representative, repeal that move? Oh, I can just discuss it without moving it? Mr. Chairman, what's your prerogative?
And you go ahead and discuss it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the previous speaker kind of hit it on the nail on the head there. This isn't quite ready for prime time, and we want a good quality bill going forth. So I think if we're trying to hurry up and put all these Band-Aids on there and come up with the definitions, I don't believe that we will get the product that these gentlemen deserve. So my point on this.
Thank you. Is there any other comments?
Yeah, I think,
Mr. Eklund?
Mr. Chairman, I think that's probably a good idea to expect our LSO to understand what we want for a conceptual amendment when we're not positive ourselves is probably getting the horse a bit ahead of the cart. One other comment, just when because I think we're gonna decide to bring the bill back at a later meeting. The may and the shall, a few years ago, the Department of Transportation brought a problem with overwidth loads. There was one hauler that, and I think they were coal trucks, that they normally would weld together once they got them to the destination. These things were, one company was hauling the whole thing down the load, down the highway, and they had 2 accidents in one day. And I really think leaving the department the flexibility to keep that company off the road is probably a good plan. I don't know of any nefarious things the department's done with anybody, so I'd like to leave them with that flexibility when you're working that bill.
Yes, Representative Schmidt.
So I'm going to say, as a rookie legislator, wow. Yeah. I think I know where we're at, but I think what we need to do is, I think we've all discussed this thing. We've discussed the changes, the amendments that are necessary to clean this thing up, make it where it's acceptable to both the ag business and these gentlemen's business here. So I think where we're at is it's back to where you guys need to get together with the department and the LSO, get this thing cleaned up and get it back to us. I mean, is that where we're at?
I think you're exactly right. Representative Ottman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, I'm just thinking that with his business and everything, it would be nice to be able to get this done rather than waiting for another year. And along with the other representative, it seems as though with the department, we have statutes. So what we're looking about is adding another subsection to deal specifically with the problem we're trying to solve. And if they work together, they should be able, they're both experts in these fields, to get that, whether or not it would be to bring the bill back or just be able to run the bill and then bring an amendment to the committee or on the floor, is something I would think that if the amendment suits what we're trying to do and that we're in agreement that it's legal and it works and it's not a problem, that amendment shouldn't cause such discussion up on the floor that it's a hindrance to progress. But that if, we'll know as a committee if we support it or not with discussion. So that's just my thoughts. I would say develop the subsection with LSO, put in there what these guys need to have their policies and enforcement, and let this gentleman get about his business.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Strzok.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would have to agree with Representative Smith and Ottman. I think sometimes we make it a lot more complicated than we need to. And I would agree that we need to get these guys get so many of these people, they're trying to make a living. And I do believe that all these regulations, everything we put at these people, we tend to, we're hindering so much of this. You take all that time filing all these permits, and we need to back off and look at this and not make it so complicated and get it out there for them. If we wait a whole nother year and sit there and spend all these hours all summer talking about this, and it's not that complicated. So thank you.
Thank you. Representative Banks.
Mr. Chairman, I want to bring some reality into this political game. I don't think we can get this where it needs to be in a day. I really don't. We heard that it's a heavy lift from the department. We heard that it's dealing with 2 different statutes. We have to do with the agriculture, we have to do with the building. I don't think we can get it to where it needs to be. I think that's the reality of the situation. And I think that, we want to do it right. We want to get the ag so that we're not messing with the ag. That's my priority. We want to get it to where the builders have their issues taken care of too. I think we're trying to do two separate things in a bill, and I think that an amendment trying to handle both things at once is just not in reality gonna happen in a day. And and then to have it come back here after we've already spent 2 days on one bill, and now we're gonna spend another 2 days on a bill, I just don't think that's good policy for us to try and do and work legislation that way. And so I think that's where we're at as a reality of the situation, but at this point, we'll do as the committee wants us to do. That's where my mind is at right now.
Representative Eklund.
So the heavy lift that the department talked about, I think was referring, they could kind of nod or disagree, whichever, but was referring to getting it done in this committee meeting today. And it's gonna, if we do it the way it has been suggested, we'll come back and vote on it and hopefully not spend. I agree with Representative Banks, spending this much time on a bill that isn't ready, but could be ready pretty quickly is tough. Was that the deal? A heavy lift getting it done in committee this morning? Okay.
Representative Davis.
Mr. Chairman, I don't disagree with the board here or the commission, but the fact of the matter is we have bills that are sitting out there that we need to attend to that are ready for prime time, and we need to address them. And we owe that to the other bringers of the bills.
Representative Provenza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking at the rules right now. I think I'm gonna make a motion to do not pass, which is then would mean that we're voting to do not pass this bill so that we can move on. We've got 9 bills on our docket.
Do we have a second? Representative Davis.
I'll second, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Motion's been made that we, what again?
Do not pass.
That do not pass, I'm sorry. And it's been seconded. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
I think it might be a voice vote.
Oh, okay. Go ahead,
And
Mr. Knott.
Lily, sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Lily, could you clarify, do you know on the do not pass motion, if we vote aye, we are agreeing to do not pass? And no, we are disagreeing to do not pass?
Mr. Chairman, Representative, that's correct. If you vote aye, you are voting do not pass.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead with you. Vote.
Representative Banks.
Aye.
Representative Davis.
Aye.
Representative Eklund.
No. No.
Representative Johnson, I have his vote. Representative Ottman.
No.
Representative Provenza.
Aye.
Representative Schmidt.
No.
Sorry.
Representative Strzok.
No.
Chairman Winter.
No.
We don't, it's not a motion.
I'm not saying motion, whatever you want to do. That's all I'm saying. That's what we talked about before. That's what we're making this comment. Just let them work together, see what they think. If it's terrible and we don't like it, we vote it down then. Give them time to do that.
In the meantime, 10 bills die.
Do you know what? It's. Anyway,
Okay.
let them work on this. I'll say, we're not stopping anything. They're taking the time to work on this. We vote on it on the committee of the whole. Otherwise, we're really killing everything they've worked on. We're not giving them a chance.
Chairman,
Go ahead.
the vote would be 6-3. Against the do not pass.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the, the motion has not been approved, I guess. So what's our next step here? I would ask the,
So that would fail.
yes, it did fail.
So you're back on the bill.
Okay, we're back on the bill. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, what motion would we make to do what the board wants, the commission wants to do here?
Mr. Chairman, you actually don't need a motion. If you want, you can just hold the bill and you just don't take a vote on the bill today. And then that permits you to consider the bill at another meeting. And the bringer of the bill can work with LSO to get an amendment prepared for the next meeting, for whichever meeting they want to bring it to.
Okay, so we just need to vote on the bill right now.
No, you don't need to do anything. You can just, you just move on to the next bill.
Okay, all right, well, thank you. Sorry for the confusion, folks. Guess we'll get it figured out eventually. We'll now go to bill number, what is it?
168.
168?
Here's mud. Here's mud.
Representative Eklund, would you?
You guys gotta go to work.
Thank you for coming.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Eklund.
are you ready for me to present this bill?
We are.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, committee, I bring to you House Bill 168, and it is basically a prohibition on cultivated meat. And in essence, that's really all it does. It just prohibits the sale, the production, the manufacture, and the use of this meat in the state of Wyoming. I don't think it says actually use. So a person could probably buy it from out of state and bring it home. Other than that, it's prohibition. And the reason I bring it, you're gonna say, that guy's trying to protect his industry, and there's certainly some truth to that, but a few years back, when I first heard about cultivated meat, it seemed kind of far-fetched. It was really expensive to do it, and no testing had been done, no science behind what they were doing, other than you would take stem cells, put them through a laboratory process, and they would be a continually replicating cell that would then turn into in this case, muscle tissue from whatever animal they took the stem cells out of. And I'm not sure it even has to be an animal. It could probably be plants in the science, but they have to have stem cells. So I thought it would be a ways down the pike, and then suddenly I hear about a program that was going to be started by somebody. It was okayed by the government. They were going to manufacture this synthetic meat and then feed it to veterans. And that kind of perked me up. I thought, how in the world can they do that? Because we're in the infancy of this industry. So as you research that, Food and Drug Administration doesn't do the testing. They don't do it. Everything that comes to them, including pharmaceuticals, is research. They have guidelines on it maybe, but it's research handed over to the Food and Drug Administration by the company wanting to do it. The pharmaceuticals are a little better guided, and they usually have clinical trials, and they do them themselves, and hopefully they're good trials. But this, we still don't really have very much there, and because it kind of perked me up, I thought, if they could do that somewhere else and feed it to veterans without any testing, what's going to stop a government program like the school lunch program from doing it on our school kids? And I don't think you're going to necessarily end up with beef until beef or lamb or whatever it is. It'd probably be even more specialized than the common meats that we have. If we allow that to happen, and there are bad side effects from eating this meat, problems, whatever could happen in the laboratory, because it's a chemical process too. If that happened, I would hate to see Wyoming being the front end of the guinea pig on this deal. If other states really want to have that happen, let's let them see what happens if they were to feed synthetic meat to their people or allow it and what have you. So I think in essence, this is as much a safety bill probably as a prohibition, and I'd entertain questions.
Are there any questions for Representative Eklund?
Oh, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
That program to feed synthetic meat to the veterans was pulled. There was kind of an outrage over it, as there should have been. So anyway, that isn't on the table anymore. But I think the same thing could happen. I'm not sure who pulled the plug on that deal, but at least they did.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the committee? Representative Ottman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for bringing this bill and opening up this attention to it. The only question that I have is when you said about chemically modified with stem cells meat and things like that, that would take care of those types of meats in particular and not deal with things we already have, vegetarian and plant-based and soy and all those things, correct? This would just be for manufactured, basically. Thank you.
Yes. A plant source for a meat substitute is fine. I'm not bothered by that. My concern is, because I think we take a wholesome product. I don't know if any of you have ever had some of these meat products that are made out of vegetables. They're a little different, but at least they take a wholesome produced product in America and change it into something that would work for vegetarians and vegans and what have you. So it's just this it's about synthetic food, and and this won't be a prohibition on all of it, because there are a lot of vitamins that are made synthetically. And if I understand things correctly, and this was from a long time ago, research that naturally produced vitamins and used were hydrolyzed slowly, more slowly than the synthetic ones, and were actually a better a better use. So this is why a lot of why we have the organic movement, organic foods and natural foods movement that's in the country today.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Eklund. Is there any agency personnel out there that would like to testify? Seeing none, how about the public? Anyone there are here to testify on this bill? I guess we have one Zoom participant.
We don't have any online for this bill.
You don't? Okay. Thank you.
Department of Ag not here.
Don't see him. Okay. Representative Ottman has moved that we move the bill. Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and second that we move the bill forward to, we'll have to take discussion from the committee right now.
Question? Answer?
Question's been called for. Do you want to call for the vote?
We're voting on House Bill 168. Representative Banks.
Aye.
Representative Davis.
Aye.
Representative Eklund.
Aye.
Representative Ottman.
Aye.
Representative Provenza.
Aye.
Representative Schmidt.
Aye.
Chairman Winter.
Aye.
The vote was 8-1 to pass.
Thank you. As Mr. Knott said, the motion has passed. What's the pleasure of the committee? Do we want to move forward with another bill? 9:20. We have time to work another bill?
It isn't noticed. We've noticed it on our list of things that might happen this morning.
Yes, we have. So, well, we'll,
Chairman,
yes,
would you like to ask Mr. Eklund, Representative Eklund, to run it on the floor?
to what?
To introduce it on the floor, or to manage it on the floor?
I will. Oh, okay, yes, please, thank you. We're going to go to House Bill 153 now, and Representative Banks will carry the bill.
Well, Mr. Chairman, let's hope this goes as smooth as the last transportation bill the Ag Committee tried to run through.
Go ahead with your presentation.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. So today I bring the committee House Bill 153, permanent vehicle registration. And this was an issue that was brought to me a lot of years ago, even before I was in the legislature, and then just kind of brought to my attention again 2 years ago. And then again now, I think one of the things that's pushing this, of course, is the inflation and high cost of living and everything, and what people need and what we can address to alleviate some of those needs for some of our people, especially the aging generation, which none of you are on this committee. So what this bill does is it proposes a way to mediate this, while allowing, let's see here. It allows vehicles 15 years and older to be eligible for this permanent registration. So how it works was, if you've got, my pickup is a 2005. How it works is, right now I pay $260 on it. You'd pay the state administration fee of $87.50, plus you'd pay 3 times the amount of what that registration is. So I'd pay 3 times the $260 to get that permanent registration plate. And so trying to find the balance here of giving some people the ability to permanently register their vehicles, so not having to allow that cost every year, while also giving the ability of where those registration fees goes to collect an offset. So 3 times the amount of what that would be. The point being is, a new batch of vehicles will be eligible for this every year. So again, 3 times the amount of those fees would be, again, available in the budgets. Also, there's an efficiency aspect. Clearing out some paperwork in the treasurer's office, allowing them to not have so much turnover in the yearly vehicles. It allows them to get rid of some paper, save on some stamps, and just trying to bring this all into being an efficient manner that we can help out the people of our communities with this small aspect. And again, I just want to reiterate that you'll see, and these fiscal notes are an educated guess. What I said last time when asked by a member of the committee, so what's this all about? Well, we have to take into effect that not everybody is going to apply for this, first of all. And the second of all is, there's a new batch of vehicles every year. So there's going to be a huge jump right at the beginning. And then as more vehicles become eligible, there's going to continue to be an increase because they're paying 3 times the amount. And they'll still be able to collect those that aren't applying for this, as well as all the vehicles newer than 15 years. So anyways, just because of time, went through that kind of fast. If there's points that I need to go over for the committee, I will stand for questions, but that's the gist of the committee. The meat of the bill starts on page 5, so that's when we talk about the fees and the eligibility requirements of the bill. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Banks. Does the committee have any questions for Mr. Banks? Representative Schmidt.
Yes, Representative Banks, to use your example of your vehicle, say you choose to go with this program and a year into it, you decide to sell the vehicle, the motor blows up, it's not worth putting a new motor in, and you wreck it, whatever. Can you apply to get some of this 3 years in advance paid reimbursed? Or do you pay that on an annual basis? You said 3 times the registration fee. Do you pay that one time? So if you don't get the full 3 years or out of that, can you get some of that money back if one of these instances happen with that vehicle?
Representative Banks.
I don't know if I asked that the right way, but.
No, I understand what you mean, Representative. Yeah, if you pay the 3 times the amount, and then the next year vehicle goes kaput on you or something.
Right.
And the answer to that is no, you wouldn't be able to get any of that back as this written. That's kind of, I guess, part of the gamble of driving an old beater around, is that could happen, but as the bill's written, no, that there wouldn't be any reimbursement to that.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Davis.
Mr. Chairman, Representative, I think you got a little problem with your math here. If I'm struggling to pay my $250, or am I gonna come up with 3 times that amount?
Representative Banks.
Mr. Chairman, and that would be a budget discussion between you and your spouse of where you'd find that extra money. But, and that was a point that was well taken, and I asked some of my, the constituents that brought me this that would ask if they would allow it. And they said, well, we would make it out in the long run. They have a pickup. 2 of these people have one in between 15 and 20 years old. And they said, well, we would be able to come up with a little money there to get it in the beginning, and then it would catch up to itself, and we'd be able to initially up front, we would be out, but over time it would pay off, after 3 years, then you'd be in the green again after that. So that's the scenario that was brought to me.
Well, Mr. Chairman, that probably doesn't exactly jive with the previous, where after 1 year I blew the engine up in it, and there I sit. Follow up, Mr.
Go ahead.
Revenue, I guess the revenue is the big issue on this bill to me. What is the long-term impacts on these dollars, and where are they currently allocated to?
Representative Banks.
Well, Mr. Chairman, that's, if you look on the back of this, you can kind of get a take of what all that is and where it goes, the highway fund, and county school districts, all of that, local entities kind of a thing. And if you look at the increase that it's gonna get because of the continued turnover, and I don't believe that that's been taken into effect, the fact that there's gonna be a new batch of vehicles that's gonna be eligible every year of 3 times the amount, as well as, not everybody's gonna wanna do this. I mean, I might think, it's worth it to me to not have to worry about it anymore. I pay 1 time because mine comes up in February while I'm down here, and I have to race home and remember to get it in the mail and pick them up and get back. You don't have to worry about it anymore. But there's a lot of people that probably won't take advantage of it either. So we're just balancing the scale here of weighing the options of what we have and making it an option of people who want to take advantage of it, and be in line also with surrounding states that have this as well.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Representative Eckman.
So in these other states, is there any data that would show what the revenue picture was by going to a permanent registration like you're suggesting? And then I do have another, you talked about 3 times the cost of your car, but you don't tack on the $87.50. It's just 3 times the cost of what it is now. Okay, so I understand that. But the data from other states might be all we have. I'll go into that a little bit and ask. But, you have anything?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. So I know, especially in Montana, I would believe that their revenue would be significantly increased because they get all the Wyoming people that go up there and want to register them, because we don't have it up here. We don't have it down here. So, I think we have a potential of pulling some of that back. I know it's big up in my area. Everybody goes and uses a PO box in Montana and then gets their vehicles permanently registered up there. But as far as specific numbers of the revenue they generate, theirs is a little bit higher. Theirs is, I believe, 5 times the amount of what they would pay. So if I had the example, my pickup at $260 in Montana, it's 5 times the amount. And that's just a policy decision of the committee, is if I tried to find the balance of, well, give them the option, but not price them out of doing it. And so, in the conversations I had with the people who brought this to my attention, we felt that 3 times the amount was probably leveling the scale.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, Representative Ackman.
Mr. Chairman, so this wouldn't just be passenger cars and pickups, it would be like farm trucks. What about semis?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Road tractors.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, semis is a different deal.
Okay.
That's, yeah, not, because it's, there is a piece in the bill that says is not a commercial vehicle on page 5, line 9, not a commercial vehicle. But agriculture definitely is included in this, and there's I know a lot of ag producers that, and especially in my district, who really are pushing for this.
Representative Ackman.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman. So ag producers do have semis and they're used strictly, there's no commercial use of them whatsoever. They would be included in this bill as well?
You know, Mr. Chairman, that's a good question of where, if it's an agricultural semi, if they'd be included or if they'd be restricted under that definition. I'll have to get clarification to that myself.
Okay. Representative Smith, did you have a question?
Representative Beckman.
Okay, thank you. Representative Ackman.
This is kind of a statement, maybe I can ask it as a question, but Montana does have a crazy system. You can register what you do is you file a LLC in Montana, and then you can bypass sales tax on whatever you happen to buy. This case, it's different. It's illegal to do that. If you vote in Wyoming and you own the vehicle, it's illegal to be doing that with Montana. I think people need to know that. We don't enforce it very well, but it's quite a bit of revenue that the state loses, especially in sales tax.
Okay, Representative Provenza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm looking in here and I'm wondering, and I've got the statute book pulled up, but I haven't gotten there yet. Are we relying on a definition that's in 31.2 on commercial vehicle that I can look at? So that I know exactly what that is, or do we need to define commercial vehicle in this section of statute?
Mr. Chairman, will you point to where you're looking at again?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm looking at page 5, so I'm going back to, it's not a commercial vehicle, right? And so, and all this is listed under 31-2-206. And so my question is, if we say the owner of a vehicle required to be registered under 31-2-201A, and I'll look that up in a second, but because we have numerat I is not a commercial vehicle, I'm wondering what statute we're pointing to see what your definition of commercial vehicle is, to see if those ag semis are gonna fit under that or not, under the current statutes that exist.
Right, yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think that's a valid question. If we can find a statute somewhere that exempts exempts ag from a commercial definition, or if we need to spell something out in here, I'm amenable to that, but as far as I know, yeah, I'm not aware of a definition unless it's already laid out in statute that we can find somewhere, but yeah, I'm amenable to the feelings of the committee on that one.
Representative Davis.
Mr. Chairman, on that, your commercial vehicle, whether it's ag or not, still has to run DOT, correct? And if it has not for hire, is that just simply enough to say it's an ag? I don't know. I'm just posing the question out there.
Representative Banks.
I would, if we got YDOT people here, I'd divert those questions to them, besides this dumb cowboy who doesn't know transportation things.
Okay. Any more questions? Okay, thank you. Are there agencies here that would like to testify on this bill? Welcome, ma'am. Could you state your name and
Good morning, Debbie Lopez with the Wyoming Department of Transportation Motor Vehicles Section. So the question was about commercial vehicle. The definition is 31.1.101. Commercial vehicle would mean any vehicle or vehicle combination used, designed, or maintained for transportation of persons for hire, compensation, or profit, or designed or used primarily for the transportation of property for gain or profit. And it goes on. So I believe it includes ag. You would have to ask the ports if there's anything on that, and I'm sorry, they're not here now. I don't know. My comments on the bill is so the numbers on the fiscal note did not include any of the ag or commercial because we don't have those noted in the registration. There was no way for us to pull the vehicles that are ag. So we just went by passenger truck vehicles. And it looks like the YDOT and the counties are going to lose quite a bit of money when this happens. And yes, there will be an increase each year for the years that get older, assuming the people will buy the permanent plate, but it in no way compares to the cost that is going to be lost. On page 8, it talks about, starting on page 7, line 21, it talks about upon transfer of ownership, the original owner shall immediately remove the license plates. It would be great if they would also immediately notify the county treasurer, so the county treasurer can cancel that registration and/or return the plate to the county. Because I've seen this with the permanent plates on the Pioneer vehicles. They're all active in our system. Every single one that was issued from the beginning of time. We don't know if those cars are in the junkyard now, if they've sold them. We have no idea. They all are showing active in our system. And another thing that on page 9, line 5, it says effective July 1 of 2025. YDOT is in the middle of getting a new system, computer system. If it's supposed to go live in July, but you know how computer systems are. If it goes live July, if it doesn't go live before July 1, we'll have to pay programming fees to program the old computer system to accept a permanent plate. So if that could be changed to January of 2026, it would be great. And I stand for comments. Questions?
Yes, thank you. Representative Eklund.
Mr. Chairman. Hello, Mrs. Lopez.
Hi.
Good to see you again. So the conversation has happened on lost revenue within the department. Do you have any idea how much that is? And the reason I ask the question is because our Department of Transportation is tasked with a huge amount of maintenance on roads, and we're getting behind on them, and to the tune of maybe $300-400 million every year. So I'm curious how significant this might be and what you might have discussed within the department.
So on the, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Representative, on the fiscal note, I don't see page numbers on them, but it has a revenue decrease. So the highway fund in 2025 would be 9.6 million. The counties would be 9.9 million. And then in fiscal year 26, the highway fund would be 10.1 million loss, and then the counties would be 21.7 million lost.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you, yes.
I'm
Go ahead.
sorry, Ms. Lopez, could you read those again, please?
Mr. Chairman,
ahead.
Representative.
Mr. Chairman.
In 2025, the highway fund 9.6, and the counties 19.9. And then in 2026, 10 million for YDOT and 21.7 for the counties.
Everyone have that? Any more questions for the highway department? Thank you. Appreciate you coming here.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Jonathan Russell with the Wyoming County Commissioners Association. I'll keep my comments brief as we do have a commissioner that's online to provide testimony, and we appreciate the opportunity for her to do that. First off, Representative Banks, thank you for the efficiency element that's behind the bill. We appreciate that greatly. I have 3 comments to make. My first one is an insurance element. You know that when you go and register your vehicle, you are to provide insurance at that time to show proof that you do have insurance. But you could say that someone who is going the permanent vehicle registration route could then, after doing so, cancel that insurance, and there's no element in there to prove going forward that they do have insurance. So there is the opportunity there and the probability that there would be uninsured vehicles traveling on our state roads. That's it, number one that I have. Also, and Representative Schmidt alluded to this earlier, there's no credit given if you were to wreck or sell your permanent registered vehicle given to you if after that were to occur, you come back buy a vehicle that meets all the requirements for the permanent registration. You've got to go through that whole process again. And then number 3, and it's already been stated, that there is a revenue loss for the counties. That's a big concern of ours. I can give you some registered vehicle stats. This would be relevant to the previous bill that was introduced in 2023, which was House Bill 154. And I'll just give you a quick number of vehicles, a high and a low number of vehicles that would be registered in particular counties. So at that time, and again, the elements are a little bit different. We were looking at vehicles that were 20 years old versus the 15-year we're looking at now. But at the high end of that, Niobrara County had 42 vehicles that would have been eligible for the permanent vehicle registration, and at the low end, Teton County had 20% of their vehicles were eligible for the permanent vehicle registration. That's not saying that all of those vehicles would have done that, but that's the range of vehicles. And again, that's from the previous bill, and those are the stats that I have back from 2023. So with those things said, I'm willing to answer any questions so that we can maybe hear from a commissioner.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the commissioner? Seeing none, thank you very much. Appreciate your coming and visiting with us. Are there any other people out there who would like to testify? Senator Hutchings.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Senator Hutchings, Senate District 5 here in Cheyenne. You know, I really like this little bill. That's why I signed on to it. But as I look and listen to what everybody has to say about it, I still like it. But I think there's some changes that could be made if possible. Maybe the good bringer can start all over and bring it back next year. I don't know. But I do ask that you look at the fiscal note. There's a lot of ifs in there. If this happens, if this happens, if 50% of the people in the state do this, and I don't think they will. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll just say, I like the bill. Let you guys make the decision here on the committee, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much for being here. Any questions for?
I can't hear you. If you can hear me, I'm sorry. My name is Elaine Griffith, Niobrara County Commissioner, and I will be very brief. I just wanted to speak against this bill because of the loss of revenue. As we know, county fees are distributed in the same manner that property taxes are. They go to our special districts, such as our fire, our senior center, the hospital, conservation district, weed and pest. They go to the towns, the school district, and to the county general fund, which in our case, it supports our library and our fair. When we do a decrease in loss to our revenue, it means a decrease to other departments in funding. And so I would speak against this bill. And if I could hear you, I would be glad to take questions, but I can't hear you now.
Here. Can you hear us now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, well, we appreciate your testimony and, well, we may have some questions for you, so hang tough.
Thank you.
Any questions from the committee? Representative Provenza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Commissioner, thank you for your testimony. I guess, you know, it sounded like Niobrara had 42% of vehicles that met this threshold of the 15-year plus, and there would be substantial revenue loss to your county. I'm wondering if you have an estimate on those numbers. And then if you do know how much money you would cut, what services do you anticipate you would have to cut in your county to make up for it?
Representative Provenza, I do not have those figures for this new bill. When I spoke against it 2 years ago, it was at a 20% or 20-year. And so this increases it somewhat, but I'm sorry, I do not have those figures. And when we do budgets and we find a decrease in revenue, it would go across to, I'm speaking for the 12 mills that the county gets, it would be a decrease to all departments, whether it's the sheriff's department, the clerk's department, and in our case, funding to the library and to the fairgrounds. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Are there any other questions? Representative Eklund.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mrs. Griffith, do you remember which committee this bill was in? I don't remember it in Ag, so I'm wondering if it was Transportation previously. Oh, I'm getting a nod here.
Yes.
It was Transportation. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you, ma'am. I appreciate your participation. And come back again when you can or you need to. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
What's the
Lindsay West would be.
What's the pleasure of the committee?
Chairman,
Yes,
Lindsay West is on Zoom also.
okay. Would you bring her on, please? Welcome, Ms. West.
Good morning, Chairman Winter. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Right. My name is Lindsay West, and I'm the Carbon County Treasurer, but I also have the privilege of serving as the president of the Wyoming County Treasurers Association. I'll try to keep it brief. I'm here today to report to the committee that the association neither supports or opposes this bill, and I'm here to just offer comments from discussions held by the association to answer questions concerning the administration of this bill, should they arise. If you'll remember, in 2023, there was the passage of House Bill 41, which allowed for the permanent registration of light trailers. So we at the county treasurer level have had experience in issuing these permanent registrations, and that has went well since we started to issue those permanent lightweight trailers. During our discussions, the mention of commercial trailers did come up. They are currently excluded from the permanent registration language under this bill. And it kind of just touches on the bringer of the bill sentiment that there are Wyoming residents and businesses who are opting to register their vehicles out of state. And that kind of carries over to commercial trailer registrations and as well. So that would be something for just the committee to consider, inclusion of those commercial trailers, just something to ponder. The only other item in this bill discussed by the treasurers was the language on page 6, lines 8 through 10, that reads, "Any donated amount shall not be subject to the requirement to pay 5 times the applicable amount." This to us is perceived that the clarifying nature of the addition of that language is to mean that any donated amount is not subject to the same multiplier of the county fee being referenced. So I guess the question would be to the sponsor of the bill, is the 5 times reference actually supposed to mirror the 3 times of the county fee referenced in that Romanet 2? And if that was not the intent of that language, to provide clarification on its inclusion. Certainly, we appreciate any language that makes administration or conveyance of the law to Wyoming residents and our constituents easier, but would ask for clarification on that. The final thing that I'll touch on is that there will be fiscal impact at the county level should this pass. Fiscal impacts are more a matter of policy, and we will certainly leave that to the committee. But it's important to note that treasurers do often play roles in county budgeting processes in the form of revenue budgets and forecasting, and it will certainly be interesting to see how many permanent registrations are utilized should this bill pass, and what percentage of qualifying vehicles are registered under these provisions. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I would conclude county treasurer comment on the bill, and I would be happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Representative Dalton Banks.
Yeah, real quick. Thank you for your testimony. So on that, that last language, that donated amount, do I understand if we just make it 3 so it matches, which I don't know if that was just a drafting error or how that ended up there, that if it matched and it was 3, then the treasurers would be comfortable with that language?
Chairman Winter,
Yes.
Representative Banks, I don't know that there would be any change to the way that we administered this if the language was left as it is. I was just thinking that that was the intent of that 5, was just to mirror the 3, so that we're not expecting donations to match the amount of the multiplier for that county fee.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, what's the pleasure of the committee? Do we have a second?
Do we want to wait on this or?
Well, I guess we could. Yeah, we got about 3 minutes before we have to be in the chamber, so I guess we'll just postpone this until the vote on Thursday. And we'll move the bill and finish it up then. Thank you. Appreciate you folks.